Shulam Aleichem, everybody. Today's daf is daf Yud and Zvachim. We start from 4 lines from the bottom of Testament Beis. Says the Gemara, Itmer, Shachta Lishma, Luzrik Dama Shaloi Lishma. What if a guy shechts a behema Lishma? Right? The Shechita itself is Lishma. But B'shaz the Shechita, he has a second thought. He thinks to himself, I'm going to do the Zrika, right? One of the other avoidus, Shaloi Lishma. So Rabbi Yoel Psula Rish Lakish Kshera. Rabbi Yoel Psula Mechaj Ma'avoida La'avoida. There's a concept that you could passel through a machshava while you're doing one avoida and having a machshava that you're going to do a different avoida b'psol. That's called Mechaj Ma'avoida La'avoida. That I'm doing the avoida of Shechita and I can be Mechashev, I can think about the avoida of Zrika, that I'm going to do that Shaloi Lishma, and it passes it. And how do I know you can do that? What's pigel? Pigel is you do a shechita on a carbon. You're thinking that I'm going to do the zrika chutz l'zmanai, right? I'm going to do chutz l'zmanai. That's pigel. That's the essence of pigel. So you can do by pigel. You can do by Shaloi Lishma also. Rish Lakish Kshera. Rish Lakish says it's kosher. Ein mechashem avoid la'avoida v'lo yalfinem machshavas pigel. No, you can't be mechashem from one avoid to the next, and you can't learn it from pigel. Rashi explains beautifully why. Because pigel, when you have a machshava to be zoyrek, the dam on the mizbeach chutz l'zmanai, it's not a pshat that you're being mechashem avoida la'avoida. That's not the issue. Zrika on the mizbeach is called really a achila. That's an achilas on mizbeach. The mizbeach consuming it, eating it, so to speak, right? And so pigel is very unique. It's a unique halacha that's shaykh to achila, not avoida. Nothing to do with avoida. It's shaykh to achila. That if I have a machshava b'shas the avoida to be oichel or machel to the mizbeach or the haktaras chaylev, on the mizbeach, which is not even one of the avoidas, Rashi says, any type of achila, I have in mind, I'm gonna be machel the mizbeach or a person chutz l'zmanoi, that passes, that's pigel. Nothing to do with avoida. It happens to be zrikas at avoida as well, but really in machaj and avoida l'avoida. You can't passel a carbon by thinking about a different avoida while you're doing this avoida, that you're going to do the different avoida b'psol. That's not what pigel is. Pigel is the achila. It's really a highlight. It's emphasizing the achila. Zrika is b'teres achila, not b'teres avoida. That's what's passing the pigel. Okay, very long the Rashi. But Akapanim Rish Lakish says that ein mechashem avoida l'avoida, and if a person thinks while he's shechting l'shma that he's going to be zorig the dam shaloi l'shma, the halacha is it's still kosher. V'ozla tamai the itmer hashoichet is a behema almanas l'zirk dama laveris kechavim olahakter chelba laveris kechavim Rabbi Yochanan Omer asurin mechashem avoid lavoida f'nechutz mepnim. So the same idea. If somebody shechts a behema of chulin, Rashi says, and he shechts it, he doesn't want to shecht it lavoida zara, but he's shechting it with a thought that he's going to use the dam to be zorig the dam for avoida zara, or to be mak to the chaylev to avoida zara. Rabbi Yochanan says, right now, b'shas shchita already, it becomes aser bahana, like Zvachim Mason. And Rabbi Yochanan masmich hash v'avoid lavoida v'afinu chutz mepnim, and you take a learn it from pigel. Right? Shlokasham materes ein mechash v'avoid lavoida v'afinu chutz mepnim. You don't learn shchutei chutz, which is chulin for avodah zara. Mepnim from a behema inside the zara that's being nikra on the mizbeach. V'yesh min baha. And why are they arguing in both places? If you just would have told me Baha, in this case over here, Avodah Zarah Baha Rish Lakish, I would have said only here Rish Lakish says that you don't learn it from pigel. Why not? Because it's chutz mipnim. Right? You're trying to learn chutz from pnim. Avodah Zarah, which is shechted outside, from pnim, from hekdesh that's shechted inside the Zarah. Avol pnim mipnim. When dealing with kachim, one is shaloi lishma, one is chutz l'zmanai, right? But they're both hekdesh that's kachim that is being shechted inside. And perhaps here you could learn from pigel. The yashmin and ha, if it just would have said the halacha, the machlekes would have just been by shaloi lishma by karbonis. But hakav Rabbi Yochanan would have said only here Rabbi Yochanan says mechashem avoid lavoid, because you could learn pnim from pnim, shaloi lishma from chutz l'zmanai. But over there by the zara, ein avoid l'rish lakish, you can't learn chutz mepnim. Tzrichi, that's why they're arguing in both inyanim, in both cases. Ki Yasser Rav Dimi Omar. So Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, and he said like this: Masav Rav Yirmiyah l'Sayuel Rabbi Yochanan. Rav Yirmiyah asked the kasha on Rish Lakish to bring a raya to Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Ila l'Sayuel Rish Lakish, and Rabbi Ila asked the kasha on Rabbi Yochanan to bring a raya to Rish Lakish. Okay, let's slow down. Let's see what they said. Rav Yirmiyah l'Sayuel Rabbi Yochanan. Rav Yirmiyah to bring a raya to Rabbi Yochanan said like this: Uma b'makom Shem Omer Rabbeinu Sheichit Chutz L'Zman Eshu Kosher. Madich, if he says b'shas shchita, I'm shechting it chutz l'zmanoi, it's kosher. Why? Because that type of an amira, that type of machshava, has no meaning, right? Lamaisi is shechting it b'toich hazman, right? Whenever he's shechting it, that's b'toich zmanoi. It makes no sense such a thought. It's kosher. So shchot al manas l'zug dam chutz l'zmanoi posel, and yet if you shecht al manas to be zorig the dam chutz l'zmanoi, it's possible. Yeah, it's possible b'shem pigul. So mokoim. Shem Omer in Shechet Shloi L'Shmoi. So when you shech the behema Shloi L'Shma, b'shas shchita, you think to yourself it's Shloi L'Shma. It passes the behema, right? By Pesach and Chatas we're talking about. Shocht al manas lizrog domish Shloi L'Shma, and then she apostle. Madich if b'shas the shchita itself, it would passel it if you had a machshav of Shloi L'Shma b'shas shchita. So kavachaymer it would passel. If you thought b'shas shchita al manas lizrog domish Shloi L'Shma, it would passel kavachaymer from pickle. Not a good kavachai, but pircha. Pigel has a chumrah, it has chorus. That's why if you have a machshava b'shas shchita lizreg dama chutz l'zmanoi, it's possible because it's more chamer. Really, Rav Yirmiyah meant to say like this: Madach, if a person says to himself, a kohen says, shechting it. Chutz l'mekoymoi. Chutz l'mekoymoi is not chutz l'zmanoi, right? It's only a lav, it's not chorus. But still, it passes the carbon. But if he says it b'shas shchita and he thinks hareini sheichet chutz l'mekoymoi, that won't pass the carbon. It's kosher. L'maisa b'poil, you watch him, he's in the yazar, he's shechting it b'mekoymoi. So it has no mashmois, it has no meaning that. So it's kosher. And yet, shachta al manas lizard dam chutz l'mekoymoi pasal. Still, if you thought b'shas shchita on the zrika to do it chutz l'mekoymoi, that's possible. So makam shemamar in sheichet shloi l'shma shu possible. So kavachaymer for a halacha of shloi l'shma where it can pass the shchita itself, right? If you shecht on if you think about the shchita itself, it's possible. Shachta al manas lizrig dam shloi l'shma and then she possible. Certainly, if you shecht al manas lizrig the dam shloi l'shma, certainly it should be possible. Maskef l'Ravashi mal l'chutz l'mekoymoi shekein noig b'chal Zvachim. Still, there's a chumrah b'chutz l'mekoymoi. It's noig b'chal Zvachim. Anytime the kohen b'shas shchita thinks that he's going to be zoyrik the dam chutz l'mekoymoi, it doesn't matter what kind of carbon it is, it passes the carbon. Taimir b'shaloi l'shmoi she'einu noyeg elo b'pesach v'chata. Shaloi l'shma only passes by pesach and chata. So you see, the chutz l'mekoymoi is more chamer, so you can't use it as a kavachaymer. Elam Ravashi Yechikamer. Really, Rav Yirmiyah meant to say as follows: Uma b'mokem shem omer reini shoichet l'shem pleni shu kosher shinoi bailam. Shinoi bailam is only an issue when you think about the zrika, you change the bailam for the zrika. You have to shecht al manas lizrik the dam l'shem somebody else. But if you shecht right now the carbon l'shem somebody else, there's no halach of shinoi bailam there. So I really shecht l'shem pleni shu kosher. Yet lizrik dam l'shem pleni pasal. But if you shecht lizrik dam l'shem pleni is pasal. Malkim shemam reini shechet shaloi l'shman shu pasal. Yeah, so kavachaymer if you shecht shaloi l'shman v'shinoi kodesh, that works even by shechita itself. It's pasal. So certainly shecht al manas lizrik dam shaloi l'shman and then she pasal. Certainly if you shecht with the kavana, the intention to be zorig the dam shaloi l'shman, certainly it should be pasal kavachaymer v'shinoi bailam. Okay, so that is a raya to Rabbi Yochanan that a machshava b'shas shchita that you're going to be zorig the dam shaloi l'shma passes the carbon also. The kavachaymer from Shina Bailam. Rabbi Yoel Seir Rish Lakish. Rabbi Yoel brings a right to Rish Lakish, and he says like this: L'chayre, you can ask the following question: Lo te omer bizrika. The Torah should never have taught me the din of l'shma by zrika. V'teise b'kavachaymer mebenayim shchita v'kabbalah. I could have learned the din of l'shma by zrika from a tzarashove or kavachaymer from shchita and kabbalah. Yeah, what would be the kavachaymer from shchita kabbalah? Rashi speaks out. Ma shchita, that's kosher bizarre, is pasul b'shaloi l'shma Zrika loy kolshkan, because Zrika is pasul bazar. And if you're going to tell me mal shchita because it passes if you shecht it l'shem, people who can't eat it when it's a carbon pesach, Kabbalah techiach. Kabbalah will prove to you that even though it doesn't have that chumrah, still there's a din of lashma. So mebei naya, the Gemara says, from the two of them, shchita and Kabbalah, I would know the halacha through a tzad hashava that zrika needs to be lishma. Why does the Torah have to specify the halacha that zrika needs to be lishma? The reason why the Torah has to teach me zrika needs to be lishma and shlo lishma pasels. Why does the Torah have to single it out by the zrika? Teretz is to tell you that it's only if you think about it b'shas zrika that it pasels and ein mechash ma'avoid la'avoida. That's Reb Ila's raya to Rish Lakish. Ask the Gemara Maskal of Papa, maybe, who told you that the Chiddush Hakra, the fact that the Torah wrote the din of Lashma by Zrika, it's teaching you that Ein Mechash Ma'avoid Lavoida. Maybe it's teaching Mechash Ma'avoid Lavoida. It's also a Chiddush. Right? So I wouldn't know the din of you need Lashma by Zrika from Shchita and Kabbalah. You're right. But now the Torah emphasizes it again by Zrika itself to tell you that you can even pasel the Zrika if you have a machshava shalol lishma b'shas shchita on the Zrika. So the Gemara says, "Imken l'shta kramine." Why does the Torah have to single it out by Zrika again? The Torah could have been quiet. V'teis mekal v'chaymer de Rav Ashi. I could have used the kal v'chaymer of Rav Ashi for that, right? The way Rav Ashi said, "I have a kal v'chaymer v'shina b'aylam" to prove the Rabbi Yochanan's halacha, so I could have had that kal v'chaymer as well. The Gemara says ve'idach. So what's he going to answer? Lamaisa, what's Rabbi Yochanan going to say? If I have a kal v'chomer, why does the Torah have to write it by Zrika? So the Gemara says, Prechachi, malahanach shekentunas tzofen v'yeshne b'chatois hapnimius. Now you can't learn it from Kabbalah and Shchita. You can't learn Zrika from those two because Kabbalah and Shchita is Shayach b'chatos hapnimius, and also it needs Tzofen by Kachar Kodeshim, so therefore it has a Chumrah. V'idach and Rish Lakish who holds Ein Mechashvim Avoid Lavoid, and he has that whole Cheshbon because the Torah singles it out by Zrika. Hagam we could have learned from Shchita Kabbalah. How could you learn from Shchita Kabbalah? Shchita Kabbalah has a Chumrah of two nice Tzofen and Chatos hapnimius. Says the Gemara, Rish Lakish doesn't hold of that. Pircha because Hashta Miyah b'Shlomim Kaimen. Lamaisa, right now we're talking about a shlomim that doesn't have these chumras of tzofan and chatois apnimius, so the kal v'chomer stands. The fact that Torah singles out Zrika by shlomim, and shlomim is not te'unas tzofan or chatois apnimius. Yeah, it's not a chatos apnimi. So why did the Torah write it by shlomim? Torah is to tell you ein mechash ma'avoid la'avoida. Okay. Says the Gemara, Itmar, Shchata l'shma, Lizrek dama shaloi l'shma, Rav Nachman Amr Psula, Rabba Amr Ksheira. Chaleks of Yechon Shlokish, and here we have a chaleks of Nachman and Rabba. V'hoda bei Rabba legabe Rav Nachman, he was chayzer and agreed to Rav Nachman, which is really Rabbi Yochanan's Shita as well, Mikal v'chomer de Rav Ashi, because the kal v'chomer of Rav Ashi, Avshina Bailam. Okay, the Mishnah said Rabbi Eliezer Omer Afa Osham, that Osham also is puzzle shloilishma just like a chatas. Tanya Omer Rabbi Eliezer chatas bo al chet, Osham bo al chet, v'Osham bo al chet. Ma chatas shloilishma psula, af Osham shloilishma puzzle. Yeah, you learn it from binyan al chet. Chatas we know. Yeah, we have drashas for chatas that it's puzzle shloilishma. So too an Osham. Omer Rabbi Shua loy. Imamarta b'chatas shken dama lamayla. So Chumra by Chatas, Rabbi Shua told him, because the dam of a Chatas is Nizrak L'mayla Mechot HaSikra. The Mizbeach had a red line in the middle, and certain karbonas, the dam was put on the top of the red line, and certain karbonas at the bottom. So here you have a chumrah by chatas that Asham doesn't have. So how can you learn Asham from chatas? Rabbi Eliezer Pesach Yechiach Shadam Lamata and Shchotus Lashmai Pasul. Yeah, still it's Lamata. So you see, it's still Pasul. So it's not the Lamaila gives it that chumrah of psul. Because a Pesach is Lamata and it's still Pasul Shlolashma. Rabbi Shua Mala Pesach against Mana Kavua. It has a Zman Kavua, that's a chumrah. Rabbi Eliezer, because it can only be brought on the 14th after Chatzos. Rabbi Eliezer Chatas Techiach. It doesn't have a Zman Kavua. So you have a Tzad Shava from Chatas and L'chayra, you have a Tzad Shava. Okay. Rabbi Yeshua, really, Chazrani Chalila, really, I can ask you, from each one you're going to try to bring a raya from, I can tell you it's not a raya, because each one has a chumrah that Asham doesn't have. Okay. Lamaisa, Gemara is going to ask in a moment why Rabbi Eliezer doesn't right away say, like we just said, it's a Tzad Shava. Okay. Gemara first says, Chazar Rabbi Eliezer b'donet dinacher. Rabbi Eliezer brought a different raya. Chatas namer b'hu b'shchita. It says the word who. Yeah? Chatas who. So what does it mean who? He lishma ksheira. If it's nishchata lishma, it's ksheira. Shlo lishma psula. Or Pesach namer b'hu b'zvicha also it says amartem zevach Pesach who by shchita. Who lishma kasher shlo lishma pasal. Af osham namer b'hu. So Gemara says hu lishma kasher shlo lishma pasal. So you see that there are who's in each of the karbonos that are pasal shlo lishma. Right? You have chatos. It's pasal lishma because it has who. Pesach says who, and also an Asham. Let be sure, no, it's not similar. Chatas never b'hu b'shchita. It says it by shchita. So therefore, he l'shma ksheir l'shma psula. Pesach never b'hu b'zvicha. Hu l'shma kash l'shma pasal. Aval Asham never b'hu alach haktar semurin. The hu of an Asham is only after haktar semurin. V'hu atzma shloktar amoran kosher. And the haktar semurin of an Asham is not even ma'akiv. Right? If you don't put the amurin on the mizbeach, it's still a kosher carbon. So the who by an Asham certainly is not coming to teach us anything le'ikuva that apostles. So you don't have that available drasha. Rabbi Eliezer, you're right. Have another source. The Torah is makish ha'asham to a chatos, ma'chatos shlo lishma pasal, af asham shlo lishma pasal. Amar mar. Okay, so that's the final drasha of Rabbi Eliezer that he compares asham to a chatos. Because the Torah says kechatas ka'asham. Amar mar, the Brisa just said Amar Rabbi Yeshua chazrani chalila. That if you try to compare it to chatas, I'll tell you chatas damila ma'ila mechutas sikra. If you try to compare it to Pesach, it's shekain zman kavua. So Gemara asks, well, me had the din of a lesson me'atzad. Yeah, why didn't Rabbi Eliezer answer him? Okay, so I could tell you that you see that it's not the damila ma'ila mechutas sikra that's goyim for Shlosh Ma'Apostle, because Pesach doesn't have that. And it's not the Shekain Zmane Kavua by Pesach that's going to the Shlosh Ma'Apostle, because Chatas doesn't have that. So, Mahad the Din of a lesson me'atzad. What's the from the Ikla Mifrach? Mal Tzad HaShavah Shemen Shekej B'Shkein Yesh B'm Tzad Karis. Tzad HaShavah has Tzad Karis. Chatas and Pesach. Yeah, Chatas comes for Zdone Karis. And Pesach also. Zdone Karis, if you don't bring a Kar in Pesach, it's Karis. Masha'enken Asham doesn't come for Karis. It comes for Asham Gzelis, Sham Me'ila. It doesn't come from Karis. Amle b'shua loy. Nay, that's not a. B'shua said you can't learn chatas from Asham. We're going back now to the original conversation. Reb Shua was mafrich Rabbi Eliezer's comparison to a chatas because he says mamarta b'chatas shkein dama lamalo. Because chatas has a chumrah of dama lamayla. Asks the Gemara v'lei milei. Why didn't Rabbi Eliezer? Why didn't Rabbi Yeshua ask Rabbi Eliezer? Lo marta b'chatas. Shekein nichnas dam lefnei v'lefnim. You find chatois chatas pnimas v'yom kippurim. The Sar LaHashem, or the power of the Kohen Gadol. It goes lefnei v'lefnim. You're zorig the dam in the kodesh hakadoshim ben abadim. So that's a chumrah. What says no b'chatas chatzaynis kamrinan? The reason why Rabbi Shua couldn't tie it is because our mission is talking about Chatas Chitzonius, where the dam is not nichnas l'kodesh hakadoshim, so you can't use that as a chumrah over an asham. Gemara says Rabbi Shua could have asked him another question: Shem nichnas dama lefnim psula. Yeah, by Chatas Chitzonius, if you bring the dam inside the heichal, it's possible. By asham, it doesn't possible. So you see, there's a chumrah by Chatas Chitzonius, asham doesn't have, and that's why you can't compare the two. So the Gemara says, no, Isla Rabbi Eliezer afa Asham. No, Asham also Rabbi Eliezer holds if you bring the dam into the heichal, it's a puzzle. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Shua could have asked another question. Shekein mechaperes l'chai v'krisis. chatas mechaper and chai v'krisis, mashenken and asham. So the Gemara says, no, not every chatas is mechaper and chai v'krisis, because mechatas the shmiyas hakol. Shmiyas hakol, which means if somebody swears b'shoigig that he doesn't know edus, and then he realized he does, then he has to bring a chatas shmiyas kol, it's called, and that's only a lav, that's not a karas, so chatas also is mechaper on, not just on karas. So Gemara says, another question that Rishua could have asked Rabbi Eliezer, that you can't compare chatas to an asham. Why? Because chatas is a chumrah. Chatas is a chumrah. Shekein tu'una arba matanos. You have to give it. You put the dam. You have to give it arba matanos. Al arba kronos. You have to put it on the four sides of the mizbech, the four corners of the mizbech. So where it says Rabbi Shmuel, don't recall a dam tu'una arba matanos. It could be that Rabbi Eliezer holds like Rabbi Shmuel, so you don't have all karbonos needs arba matanos, so you don't have a chumrah of chatas over asham. So the Gemara says, but still, it could have said al arba kronos. Yeah, the chatas, besides the arba matanis, also you have to put it on the arba kronos itself. And that's a chumrah. So the Gemara says, if you're trying to find kashas, Rabbi Shul could have asked Rabbi Eliezer, chumras of chatas over asham, I'll find you more. Ike etzba, right? Chatas has a chumrah that the kohen has to do the zrika with the dam through his finger, has to dip his finger into the dam. By asham, you could just do it with a klisharis. Ike karen also is a chumrah that you have to put it on the karen of the Rosh Mizbeach Mamish. Yeah, Eke Chuda. Yeah, it has to be done on the Chuda of the karen Dafka. Shenke Ba'asham Elo, Chad Metreit last time in Oka. The truth is, Rishu could have asked many questions. He's asking one of a few that he could have asked. Okay, Omar Mar, Omar Rabbi Yeshua Loi, Mamarto. Yeah, Rabbi Yeshua asked him, if you said by Chata Shloshma Paslos is because Doma Nita Lamayla Mechut HaSikra, Lebele Rabbi Eliezer. Why can't Rabbi Eliezer just come back and tell him Asham Nami Dom Lamayla? Asham also is the dam is Nitten Lamayla Mechut HaSikra. Am Rabbi Asham Dom Lamayla Motzah Zamrit. Kalachayim Ma'oila. No, the dam Asham doesn't go Lamayla Mechut HaSikra because of Oila. Ma'oila she kolol Dom Lamata. Madachan Oila which has a chumrah that it's kolol, it's consumed completely on Mizbeach. Dom Lamata Mechut HaSikra. Asham she'ein a kolol like Koshkin. Ha'asham which is not kolol is like Koshkin that it should be Lamata Mechut HaSikra. Says the Gemara, no, Malo Oila Shken Ina Mechaperes. Oh, it's not Mechaper Oila. Mashenkan Asham is Mechaper, so there is a Tzad Chomer like Chatas. The Gemara says Chatas Ha'oif Techiach, which is not Mechaper, and yet it's Nizrak Lamata, just like an Oila. Because you see, a chatas is mechaper. It's not the fact that it's mechaper. The chatas, the reason is not because it's mechaper. Right? A chatas, the dam goes lamayla mechut hasikra not because it's mechaper, as opposed to oila, which is not mechaper. Because you see, a chatas ha'oif, right, is mechaper, and yet it's lamata mechut hasikra. So where's a malach chatas ha'oif shkein in zevach? Because malika, right? Oilo techiach, Oilo will prove to you some amela. Lo rizek rizev, lo rizek rizev. Tzad hashovish ben shein katshe kodeshem dom lamata. Afani avi yoshem shel kodesh kedoshem v'dom lamata. Okay, so Lamaisa Rabbi Eliezer couldn't have answered Rabbi Yeshua that by Osham is dom lamayla. Amler Rav Parzakular of Ashi v'lifroich mal tzad hashovish ben shkein einlan kitzva. Right? There's no set amount. There's no amount. At least the least amount you could buy a carbon, whatever behema chatas ha'oif. Oilus behema chatas ha'oif you can buy for whatever price you want. Time of Osham shesh lekitzva it has to be at least 2 shkolim of kesef. Elayin tam Rabbi Eliezer dama kra koin amachata oisa dama lamayla vein dama shel achel lamayla. Only the chatas gets lamayla mechut hasikra, gets nizrak lamayla mechut hasikra, and nothing else. And that's why Rabbi Yeshua had a good taina. Yeshua's taina was you can compare Osham to a chatas, because chatas gets lamayla mechut hasikra and not anything else. Iyochi chatas nami, yeah, oibazoi, neima oisa l'shma ksheira shlo l'shma psula, v'shar zvachim bein l'shman bein shlo l'shman ksherin. Says the Gemara, who oisa lav davka, the shayir pesach. Yeah, if you're darshaning oisa to exclude everything else, Yeah, so then Rabbi Eliezer darshan oisa by Lishma also. It says v'shachat oisa excluding asham, and why is he married by asham? Should exclude asham also. Says the Gemara oisa lav davka the shayir Pesach, because we know Pesach is not going to be excluded because Pesach is also pasal shlai lishma. So once he sees Meshayir, so then you can't consider it exclusive. Hachanami lav davka the shayir oila sa'ay freti Gemara. But by Akoina Mechata Oisa, when we're talking about the Zrikas Dam, Lamayla Mechata Sikra, it's also Lav Davka, because it's not just the Chatas. Chatas Behem, it's Oila Sa'oif, also is Lamayla Mechata Sikra. So Gemara says, yeah, Bezvicha Mila Shayar Midi. Yeah, Oila Sa'oif is Melika. But Bezvicha Mila Shayar Midi. Yiboy Saima Amani, Rebbe Lozer Reb Shimoni, the Omar, Lozer Reb Shimon says, Hai Makam L'chod, Hai Makam L'chod. Yeah, the Oila Sa'oif doesn't get the same prestigious spot Lamayla Mechata Sikra as the Chatas. The Tayin Dam Matachtayin Metonim Mechata Sikra Lamata Val Yoina Mechata Sikra Lamayla. Reb Reb Shem Medvar Mamurim Ba'oila Sa'oif B'Chatas Beim Hi Yatzma Inasa Elal Gufa Shal Keren. So there are three zones. There is the Gufa Shal Keren. There's Lamayla Mechata Sikra a little lower, and then Lamata Mechata Sikra Mamash at the bottom. So again, the Chatas has such a prestigious high place, which is Mamish on the Gufa Keren. That's why you can't learn Asham from Chatas. That's what Rabbi Shua's Taina, that you can't learn Asham from Chatas, and that's why the Gemara, or the Brisa, ended off with a limud, a hekesh. Rabbi Eliezer had to come on to the hekesh in the Torah, ka Chatas ka Asham, that just like a Chatas Shlo Lishma is possible, so to an Asham Shlo Lishma is possible. Okay, we'll stop over here.